All right, today I'm going to be showing you how to change the oil cooler lines on a 2003 Chevy S10. Other years and the GMC Sonomas are all the same. This has the 4.3 liter V6 in it, and the oil cooler lines are what's leaking. So first thing you want to do is pull the air box out of the way. I've already got this out because I was doing a spark plug job and I needed to undo the steering shaft. So the way that you disconnect and move this out of the way is there's 4 screws on the corners. You loosen those, you pick up on the lid. I'm just going to move it out of the way with a bungee strap here. And then the box, the air box, is only attached with one 10mm nut right here on this stud. And then it sits on a couple of pegs here that are like into rubber grommets. So you just pop that up and pull it straight out this direction. So what we're looking at here for this job is these 2 oil cooler lines that you can see are damp, and the box, the fan shroud, radiator side, they're all kind of wet here. So I'm actually going to replace these fittings and the lines at the same time, just to try and make sure I got the leak fixed. It could be the radiator, it could be the plastic housing on the radiator, but I don't think it is. So we're going to do lines and fittings. So we need to remove the oil fill cap and go down below and drain the oil. It's a 15mm drain plug, and I'd go ahead and pull the filter off as well so that you can make sure all the oil is evacuated. And you're going to do an oil change during this job anyways, because you don't want to spill oil out of these lines, at least not more than what's in the bottom of this. So we'll go ahead and go down underneath and do all that, and then come back up to the top here. All right, we got all the oil drained. We're going to use a little pick tool to kind of pry off these plastic caps. They just cover up the spring clips. And I might get a screwdriver to push in here sideways. Sometimes when you need to separate stuff, you can put a flat blade in and just turn it sideways. So then you'll be able to get access to these retainer clips. And you want to pull those out with a little pick tool. You don't need to, if you're replacing the lines like I am, you don't need to save the clips because the new lines come with clips built in, but this is what they look like. If you do need to reuse them, if you're just removing the lines for some reason and going to put them back, then you want to put this back in. After that spring clip is out, you should be able to just pull the line out like this. So there's an O-ring inside of there, and we're going to get a little bit of oil drippage. There's an O-ring inside of there that could be the source of the leak. Like I said, we're going to do the fittings also. See if I can stuff a rag in there for just a second while I do the one down below. Same thing on the bottom one. Flat blade screwdriver, work in between there and just turn it sideways. Work that plastic cover off so that you can get something in there to remove the spring clip. You want to pop that line out. And get some oil spilling out of that one. A little drain pan to put it underneath. All right, look from underneath. You got the 2 lines coming down here, and they're held on by a clip with probably a 10mm right there where my finger's touching. And then they go through this passageway right to the oil filter housing, and that's got a bolt on it as well. So right up here, you got another one. That looks like probably a 13. So you take those 2 loose and you should be able to pull the lines out the front here and then down from the top. It's going to take a little bit of maneuvering on these to get them past the power steering. So you might have to go up through this gap here to get out in front of the fan shroud before you can kind of work them down out of here. So that is a 10 millimeter. I got a 1/4 inch drive ratchet with a deep well socket to reach it. And now it's loose. So just remove that bolt and then that bracket should be loose. This one back here, using a 3/8 drive ratchet with a 13 millimeter. It's on there pretty tight. Probably gonna have to put the phone down, but I'm using a shallow 13 millimeter. All right, now that's loose, I'm gonna come from the front with an extension and a universal joint just so that I can use my air ratchet. Not enough room in there if I come from back there where I was. And probably gonna get some oil dripping, so I put a drain pan down here as well. Once you remove the bolt, you should just be able to kind of wiggle and tug on those lines and they'll come loose. And let that oil drain out. Make sure there's no O-rings or anything stuck on the housing, on the oil filter housing. So here's your new part, and you can see that that O-ring set is part of the line, so there is going to be an O-ring stuck to that housing because it's not on the lines that I can see. So make sure we peel that off and clean up the surface before we go put this new one on. It's hard to see here, but there is still the O-ring stuck on that. You can kind of see the little lip of it. There it is. Had to use a little flat blade. It was stuck pretty good. As you can see, I had to bend it to get it off of there, but it came loose. Now, if there's any rubber residue that is stuck to the housing, then we'll dry it off and get some Scotch-Brite just to make sure there's a good seal on the new one. Next, we'll pull these lines out of here. So like I said, we got to come through the front. And we got to pull these down from the top, kind of at the same time. No idea if I can do this with one hand. It's kind of looking like no. The short one is going to be easier than the long one. Going to have to reposition my drain pan. When these lines start moving, I'm going to be dripping oil. On the long one, there's an electrical wire kind of in the way of it. So you gotta lay it down flat to get it down here. And then you want to pull these out the front. So probably have to lower these lines. Sorry for the camera, I'm a little bit zoomed in. Have to lower these lines below the front bumper of the truck so that you can pull these out. Get your new lines fed up through there. Fed up through there. Nothing's hooked up on the radiator yet because I got to change those fittings out. I did go ahead and slide this fitting on and put my 13 millimeter in just finger tight. So I'll go ahead and tighten this one down, and then we'll go up top and change out the fittings so we can plug in the lines up there. Probably have to slide this clamp to get it in the right location. It's kind of slipped off the hoses there. I might have to set the phone down to get that back on. Don't know. Yep, it's kind of folding under itself, so I'm gonna have to get that reseated correctly. And then the 10 millimeter goes in right here, so you just line up those two bolt holes on this bracket on that clip and then tighten it down. The two lines are up here in the general area. The lower one goes here, upper one goes here. First, we're going to take these fittings out though before we install the lines. Well, the new ones are 1 inch, but it looks like the old ones are a little bigger than that. Just going to use a crescent to get on them. They're like a 25 or 6 millimeter, I guess. These have 2 O-rings, one on the end and one internally. It's hard to see without a light. That yellowish color, that's the internal one. A little easier to see on the new one because it's black. So internal, external. Do the same for the one down below, and then you'll be able to remove the cap from your cooler line. And you can just, once you pull it up in the right spot, you'll be able to insert this. I'm gonna have to put the phone down and use both hands. I gotta kind of bow the pipe out and push it in, and then we'll slide that black plastic cap that covers the snap ring on up the tube. So once you get that pressed in, the snap ring is engaged, you bring up this little plastic cap to cover that. Do the same on the one down below, and you've got your oil cooler lines installed. And I'll slip your air box back down into this space. Get it past the radiator hose there. And you've got a stud on the back right corner here. You can kind of see it there. You need to come forward a little bit. There, once you get it past the radiator hose, then you can manipulate it how you need to. There's a couple of dowels on this end, but I took that bracket off, so I'm gonna have to replace that first. All right, I actually had to come in this way first, push this up out of the way, get up in here and come back in like this because the air duct is underneath this bracket, underneath this bracket right here. So you gotta kind of work it in like that. Put your 10mm back on. Tighten that down. Got your two dowels here. One of these is missing the rubber piece. The other one's in there. Make sure that's pressed down. And then you can put your air cleaner lid back down. And your strap off of there. Also have to work that down underneath the radiator hose. So I'm going to use both hands because I got to lift up on the back side. Get it seated. Tighten down your screws on all four corners. And then if you haven't done it yet, you want to fill the vehicle back up with 4.5 quarts of oil. I think this one's 530. Check just one second. Yep, 530. 4.5 quarts with a filter. And we've already got the new filter on, so that's how you change the oil cooler lines in a V6 4.3 Chevy S10, also GMC Sonoma, multiple years. If you like today's video, please subscribe to the channel.